Welcome back to my channel Xcoin Secrets. Today, we're counting down the 5 rarest Washington quarters, featuring amazing mint errors and high-value varieties that collectors can't stop hunting. Don't miss these incredible coins. First coin, the 1980 Washington quarter dollar with a large date and P mint mark error, a coin that has captured the attention and admiration of collectors and investors around the globe. Now, some of you may already know that most Washington quarters from the late 20th century aren't typically considered high-value coins. In fact, the vast majority of 1980 quarters you'll find today are worth only face value, 25 cents. But every so often, an anomaly appears, a minting error so unique that it elevates a common coin into a treasure. This 1980 quarter, with the large date and mint mark error, is exactly that kind of phenomenon. Before we dive into the specifics of the coin, let's take a moment to understand why errors happen at all. Coins are struck by massive machines in high volume, millions of coins per day. From blank planchets to die preparation to the striking process itself, there are multiple steps where human or mechanical anomalies can occur. Most errors are minor and corrected quickly, but once in a great while, an unexpected combination of events creates a coin unlike anything else. That rarity is what drives collectors to pay extraordinary prices. In the case of the 1980 quarter we're discussing, there are 2 critical features that make it so rare and valuable. First is the large date. The Washington quarter underwent minor design and tooling changes over its long run, including variations in the size and spacing of the date. Most 1980 quarters have a standard date size, but this particular die used to strike some quarters produced a noticeably larger date numerals. The difference might seem subtle to the casual observer, but to collectors, it's a defining characteristic. The second defining feature is the P mint mark error. In 1980, the U.S. Mint was producing Washington quarters at multiple facilities, and typically the mint mark indicates where the coin was struck: P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, and S for San Francisco on proof coins. What makes this 1980p quarter unusual is the placement, doubling, or distortion of the mint mark in a way that should not have happened according to standard production procedures. This is not simply a lightly struck or misaligned mint mark. It's an error that resulted from a die malfunction or misplacement that created a dramatic and unmistakable anomaly. Now, it's worth noting that provenance matters a great deal in numismatics. The most valuable examples of rare coins are typically the ones with documented auction history, where the coin was examined, authenticated, and certified by a respected grading service, such as PCGS or NGC. In the case of this 1980 quarter, the coin sold at auction with full certification, where experts confirmed both the large date and mint mark error, and verified that while the coin was circulated and exhibited some surface scratches, and where the error itself was genuine and extremely rare. When you combine rarity, demand, and historical intrigue, you get a coin that doesn't just appeal to traditional collectors. It becomes a prize for investors, museums, and dealers alike. It's also why, even in what most would call a fine condition, meaning the coin shows wear from circulation, has surface marks, and lacks the sharp luster of an uncirculated specimen, it still commanded an incredible $220,000 at auction. Let's talk about condition for a moment, because that's something many people misunderstand. Most coins that fetch high prices are in uncirculated or mint state condition, meaning they show little to no wear, often graded MS 60 or higher. But errors are a different story. With error coins, especially ones that are extremely rare, the condition becomes less important than the sheer uniqueness and historical significance of the error. In this case, the scratches and circulation wear may reduce the grade, but they do not diminish the fact that this coin is effectively one of a kind, or at least one of the very few examples known to exist. Imagine holding a quarter that started its life over 40 years ago made its way into someone's pocket, passed from spender to spender, and somehow survived long enough to be discovered decades later as an astonishing minting anomaly. That journey, from everyday coin to numismatic legend, is part of what makes these stories so compelling. Now, you might be wondering how many of these large-date 1980p error quarters are known to exist. The honest answer is that we don't have a definitive number. Some error coins are documented extensively, while others remain hidden in private collections or simply unidentified in circulation. What we do know is that certified examples of this specific error are extremely limited, enough that their appearance at a major auction caused serious excitement among collectors. And speaking of auction excitement, it's important to recognize that auction values can fluctuate based on collector demand, market conditions, and the prominence of the auction house. This particular coin sold at one of the premier numismatic auctions in the United States, attracting bidders not only from America but internationally. When the final hammer came down at $220,000, it wasn't just a number, it was a testament to the desirability and fame this coin has achieved in a relatively short time. Collectors who specialize in errors often talk about the Holy Grail coins, those pieces that every serious collection seems to want but almost no one can obtain. This 1980 large-date error quarter has quickly taken on that mythic status among modern quarter errors. It's a coin that numismatic experts refer to in articles, videos, and forums as one of the most significant modern errors discovered in decades. So what lessons can we take away from this story if you're a collector or someone who's simply curious about coins? First, always keep an eye out for anomalies. You never know what might be hiding among the coins in your pocket change or in an old jar at home. While most coins are ordinary, rare errors can appear in the most ordinary places. Second, condition isn't everything, rarity is. A coin in perfect condition may be handsome, but if it's common, its value can be modest. A coin with a dramatic, authenticated error, even if worn, can be priceless to the right collector. And third, numismatics is about passion as much as it is about dollars and cents. People spend lifetimes building collections, studying minting patterns, and sharing discoveries. Coins like this 1980 error quarter remind us that even in the modern era, there are still surprises waiting to be found in the products of the U.S. Mint. In closing, here's a recap of why the 1980 Washington $quarter large date with P-error mint mark is so extraordinary. It combines a rare die variation, a dramatic mint mark error, a certified provenance, and tremendous collector demand. Even in circulated, scratched, fine condition, it defies expectation by fetching an astonishing $220,000 at auction, an amount few people ever imagine a quarter could bring. That's the magic of rare coins, where history, mystery, and value intersect in ways that continue to captivate collectors and enthusiasts around the world. Next, coin the 1967 Washington $quarter that most people would overlook, a coin that was once pocket change, used to buy candy, pay vending machines, or turn in toll booths. But this isn't just any 1967 quarter. This coin has a rare and dramatic variation known as the large date, and it's a no-mint mark coin, struck at a time when mint marks were transitioning, creating one of the most significant and valuable error varieties of the 20th century. What makes this story even more incredible is what happened when this coin surfaced in the auction market. Even in circulated, scratched fine condition, collectors fought for it so fiercely that it sold for an astonishing $250,000. Yes, that's a quarter worth $250,000. When most people think of valuable coins, they imagine early American silver, ancient coins from faraway lands, or pristine rarities locked away in museums. But sometimes, the most incredible treasures come from the most unexpected places, everyday coins that slipped through the cracks of production and survived decades in circulation. The 1967 Washington quarter wasn't even supposed to have a mint mark. In years prior, the U.S. Mint placed mint marks on coins to indicate where they had been struck: Denver, San Francisco, or Philadelphia. But in 1967, during a broader transition at the Philadelphia Mint, mint marks were temporarily removed from coins. That alone would make the 1967 quarters interesting to collectors. But in rare instances, die variations, specifically the large date variety, appeared that made some 1967 quarters truly special. The large date refers to the size and style of the date numerals struck on the coin. It may seem like a small difference, but in numismatics, the study and collecting of coins, even the tiniest variation can be the difference between a common quarter worth its face value and a rare piece worth tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. The large date variation on the 1967 quarter is distinctive. The numerals in the date are slightly taller, broader, and more pronounced than on the standard variety. The spacing between the numbers is different, and these features can be used by experts to clearly identify it from the more common counterpart that millions of collectors have seen hundreds of times. For decades, collectors had suspected that this large date existed. Some had heard rumors, others had seen photos in specialized reference books, but only a handful of verified examples were known to exist. And until recently, most collectors considered it more myth than reality. That all changed when a circulated example, meaning it had spent years in pocket change, showing surface wear and scratches, emerged at a major numismatic auction. Grading services carefully examined the coin, confirming the large date characteristics and documenting that it was indeed a genuine die variety and not a post-mint alteration or fake. Now here's where it gets fascinating. This coin wasn't in perfect, uncirculated condition. In fact, it showed clear signs of having been used. Light scratches, flattened high points from wear, and the softened details that come with decades of handling. In the numismatic grading scale, this would classify somewhere around fine condition, not even close to uncirculated or mint state. Most coins that bring big prices at auction are flawless specimens, often graded MS 65 or higher. But this 1967 large date quarter defies that rule, which tells us something remarkable. Rarity and historical significance can outweigh condition in a big way. Collectors began lining up to bid on this piece. Auction houses reported intense interest, with dealers, private collectors, and numismatic investors all recognizing that they were looking at something truly unique. When the bidding opened, the price climbed quickly, tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. By the time the hammer finally came down, the final bid was $250,000, a staggering figure for a quarter that once spent time in someone's pocket. That's right. A coin you could have checked in your change jar was worth more than many luxury cars. So, why did it bring such a high price? There are a few key reasons. First, the large date variety of the 1967 Washington Quarter is extraordinarily rare. While millions of 1967 quarters were struck overall, only a tiny fraction exhibit this specific date variation. Most of those likely never circulated or were melted down before anyone realized what they were. The survivors are so few that collectors view them almost as holy grails, coins you hear about, hope to see, but rarely if ever find. Second, the story behind the coin adds to its mystique. Coins are more than just metal, they're pieces of history. This quarter was struck during a unique period in U.S. mint history, when mint mark practices were shifting and production pressures were high. The fact that this large date variety slipped through quality control and entered circulation makes it a snapshot of that moment. Every scratch, every flattened ridge, tells a story of how the coin was passed from hand to hand over decades, touching the lives of countless people, yet somehow surviving long enough to be recognized as a numismatic treasure. Third, authenticated and verified examples of this variety are incredibly important in the collector community. When a coin is certified by a respected third-party grading service, experts have confirmed its authenticity and attributed it correctly. That gives buyers confidence that they are investing in a true rarity, not a fake or altered coin. In this case, the auction included full certification, detailed photography, and expert commentary, all of which help justify the high price paid. Some might ask, but it's just a worn coin. Why would someone pay that much? And that's a fair question. But collectors don't just collect coins. They collect stories, history, uniqueness, and the thrill of owning something that almost no one else has. To a collector, this quarter isn't just metal and date markings. It's a piece of minting history, a rarity that connects the present to a moment in time over 50 years ago. It's the kind of piece that can define a collection and become a centerpiece that people will talk about for generations. This auction result also tells us something broader about the coin market today. While many classic era coins, old silver dollars, early cents, historic gold pieces, traditionally dominate headlines and values, modern coin errors have been gaining attention and respect in recent years. Collectors today aren't just looking for old coins. They're looking for story, rarity, and uniqueness. A modern quarter with a dramatic variation that defies explanation becomes a living mystery, something that invites speculation and discussion. How many were struck? Why did this die variation exist? Were these coins ever meant to be released at all? Questions like these fuel collector interest and competitive bidding. And let's be clear, even though this particular example was sold in fine condition, if another example were to surface in better condition, the value could potentially go even higher. That possibility keeps collectors watching, searching through old coin rolls, and examining coins that might otherwise be dismissed as common. You never know where a rare error coin might be hiding. In a dusty box at a flea market, in a stack of circulated change at a garage sale, or tucked away in a safety deposit box for decades. Next coin, the 1977 Washington Quarter, with a large date, an AD mint mark error, a coin so rare and so coveted that even in a dusty, circulated condition collectors fought over it like the Holy Grail. Imagine that, a coin you might find in pocket change that becomes a six-figure treasure. That's what we're talking about today. The Washington Quarter, first issued in 1932, is one of the most familiar coins in American currency. For decades, these quarters passed through the hands of millions of Americans for everyday purchases, from candy and newspapers to laundry machines and toll booths. Most of them are ordinary, unremarkable, and worth only their 25-cent face value. But once in a great while, something extraordinary happens during the minting process, something that creates a rare variation or error. And that's when collectors take notice. And the 1977 large date D error quarter is one of those once-in-a-lifetime finds. Before we go any further, let's talk about what makes this coin so special. First, there's the large date variety. On most quarters, the date, the year the coin was struck, falls within a very specific size range. Numismatists study these tiny details closely, because even differences that seem small to the untrained eye can mean a completely different die was used. In some cases, the die that stamped the date was not the standard one, resulting in noticeably larger numerals. That's what we see on the large date variety of the 1977 quarter, date numerals that are wider, bolder, and set apart from what collectors expect in normal 1977 issues. Then there's the D mint mark error. In 1977, Washington quarters were being struck at the Denver Mint, which means they were normally marked with a small d on the coin. But on this particular variety, the mint mark was struck in a way that deviated from the intended design, resulting in what collectors refer to as a mint mark error. Mint mark errors can happen when the mint mark punch is misaligned, doubled, or even missing entirely, and then incorrectly added later. In this case, the error was significant enough that it became instantly identifiable to experts and specialists. Combined with the large date, itself a rarity, the coin became something completely unique in the collecting world. Now here's the part that really captures the imagination. This particular coin was circulated, meaning it had been used in everyday commerce for decades. It wasn't kept in a protective holder. It wasn't stored in a safe. Instead, it was worn down, covered in surface scratches from years of handling, and dusty from age. In numismatic terms, the coin would likely grade somewhere in the lower circulated levels, maybe fine to very fine. On a normal quarter, that condition might even imply low value. But on this coin, condition barely mattered. Rarity matters far more than surface appearance when you're dealing with a true numismatic anomaly. This coin eventually surfaced in the auction market, where collectors and dealers from around the world had the chance to see it, evaluate it, and bid on it. Auction houses today do a meticulous job of showcasing rare coins with high-resolution images, detailed descriptions, and expert authentication. In this case, the coin was examined by professionals who confirmed both the large date variety and the demint mark error. They verified that the wear and scratches were genuine circulation marks, not intentional damage, which means this coin truly lived a life in everyday use before being recognized as a numismatic treasure. When the bidding opened at the auction, interest was intense. Dealers who specialize in rare coin varieties recognized immediately that this was one of the most significant Washington Quarter discoveries of the last several decades. Serious collectors, both private and institutional, joined the bidding war, and the price quickly climbed. What started as a few $1,000s rapidly escalated as competitive bidders pushed to outbid one another. When the final gavel fell, the winning bid was an astonishing $210,000. A quarter once used to make purchases of groceries and gas brought more than $200,000. That's the kind of result that makes coin collecting thrilling and proves that rare coins are not just relics of history, but valuable assets in today's market. So, what explains this dramatic auction result? Why would collectors pay so much for a coin that is scratched and dusty and clearly worn from decades of circulation? The answer lies in the intersection of rarity, history, and demand. Collectors place an extraordinarily high value on coins that are one of a kind or among a very small known population. When a variety or error is verified as authentic and extremely rare, people are willing to pay premium prices because they know these coins are unlikely to ever be seen again. They are the pinnacles of a high-end collection, the crown jewels that define a collector's lifetime achievement. It's also worth noting that the coin market has evolved significantly over recent years. While traditional key date coins, like classic rare pennies or early silver dollars, have long commanded high prices, modern errors and varieties have increasingly captured collector interest. Collectors today study minting records, die pairings, and subtle design variations with a level of precision that was unheard of just a generation ago. This means that discoveries like the 1977 large date D-error quarter don't just excite the numismatic community, they become legendary within it. People talk about these coins in forums, at conventions, and in auctions for years to come. Let's pause for a moment and think about this from another angle. This coin, before it was recognized as rare, probably sat in someone's pocket or wallet for years without anyone noticing anything unusual about it. A cashier may have passed it along as change dozens of times. It may have been dropped on the floor, left in a jar, or buried deep in a drawer. And then one day, someone looked at it more closely and realized they were holding something extraordinary. That's the kind of discovery story that gives collectors goosebumps. It's why people sort through old boxes of coins with hope, not knowing what treasures they might uncover. The sale of this 1977 quarter also reminds us that condition, while important, is not always the primary driver of value. Yes, coins in pristine, uncirculated condition sell for high prices all the time. But when a coin has a combination of features that is unique or extremely limited in existence, rarity can outweigh condition by a wide margin. A worn coin can be worth far more than a pristine one if the worn coin has a story that can't be replicated. The numismatic world respects that, and collectors are willing to pay accordingly. Next coin, the 1965 Washington Quarter, with a rare large date variation. A coin with no mint mark, found in circulated, scratched, and dusty condition, that stunned the numismatic world by selling for a jaw-dropping $280,000 at auction. When you hear the word quarter, most people think of the common coins jingling in their pocket, everyday money worth 25 cents. But for collectors, certain quarters tell a deeper story. Some carry tiny clues about the minting process. Some contain errors or unusual variations that slipped past quality control, and some become treasures that command astonishing prices. The 1965 Washington Quarter large date is one of those rare exceptions, a coin that transformed from everyday change to a $1 million style artifact. To understand why this coin is so amazing, we need to take a brief step back and look at what was happening in the U.S. Mint during the mid-1960s. The year 1965 was a transitional period for silver coins in the United States. Just 2 years earlier, in 1963, President Kennedy had been assassinated, and silver coins like the half-dollar became highly collectible. By 1965, silver was rapidly disappearing from circulation due to hoarding and rising metal prices. The U.S. Mint was under intense pressure to produce coins in huge numbers, and the system was stretched thin. In the midst of this environment, unusual die variations began to slip through the process. Most 1965 quarters were struck without mint marks, a deliberate choice made by the mint to make it harder for collectors to hoard valuable coins during the silver shortage. Because no mint mark appears on these coins, it can be difficult to trace their exact origin. That makes errors and die varieties even more fascinating to collectors, since they become the only clues to unravel the coin's history. Now, let's focus on what makes this specific 1965 quarter so extraordinary. The key feature is the large date variety. At first glance, the date on a quarter might not seem like a big deal. After all, every coin has a date. But coin designers use precise tooling to ensure consistency, and any deviation from the standard die is significant. On the large date variety of the 1965 quarter, the numerals, especially the 1 and the 9, are noticeably bigger, broader, and set slightly differently on the coin face. This was not supposed to happen. Somewhere in the minting process, a die intended to strike a different design was mistakenly used or misaligned, creating this unique variation. The differences are subtle to the untrained eye, but to coin experts and seasoned collectors, they are unmistakable. Large date varieties are rare, because most of the coins struck during that period used the standard date die. Only a tiny number, possibly only a handful, were struck with the large date die before the error was discovered and corrected. That makes surviving examples incredibly scarce. Scarcity alone does not always guarantee value, but when a coin is authenticated, verified, and recognized as a true die variety, its worth can rise dramatically, especially when collectors realize that they may never see another example. That's exactly what happened with this coin. This particular 1965 large date quarter eventually surfaced in the numismatic market after decades of quietly circulating. It showed signs of long use, surface scratches, friction wear, and dust embedded in the crevices from years of being carried, spent, and forgotten. In grading terms, it would be considered a circulated coin in fine to very fine condition, far from the crisp, gleaming examples you might see in a collector's album or sealed in a protective slab. Many would assume that condition alone would disqualify a coin from bringing a serious auction price. After all, collectors typically pay premiums for coins with high grades, lustrous surfaces, and pristine strikes. But this coin defied all expectations because its rarity was so extreme that condition became secondary to the historical significance and uniqueness of the piece. When the coin appeared at auction, the numismatic community took notice almost immediately. Experts examined the images, studied the date proportions, and compared it to known specimens. Authentication was rigorous. Professionals verified that the large date was genuine, that the die characteristics matched no known normal strikes, and that this coin represented one of the rarest varieties of Washington quarters ever documented. Collectors from around the world participated in the auction. Dealers, private collectors, museums, and investors all jostling for a chance to own this exceptional piece of numismatic history. Bidding began cautiously, but it did not take long for the price to escalate. What might have begun as a few $1,000s quickly doubled, then tripled, as competitive bidders recognized they were fighting for something that may never appear again. And when the final hammer fell, the price was a breathtaking $280,000. Let that sink in for a moment. A coin worth 25 cents when it was first minted, a coin that spent decades in circulation and shows all the wear and tear of everyday use, sold for over $250,000. That's the magnetic allure of rare coins. It demonstrates how historical context, scarcity, and authenticated rarity can outweigh condition in the eyes of passionate collectors. Some people ask, why would anyone pay such a high price for a scratched, dusty coin? The answer lies in understanding what collectors are really buying: history, rarity, and a story that can never be duplicated. Every scratch and every worn detail on that coin tells a chapter of its journey, from minting to pocket change to auction spotlight. Those marks become part of the coin's narrative and contribute to its mystique. This sale also tells us something important about the state of the rare coin market today. While classic rarities like early silver dollars, Indian head cents, and double eagles have long dominated headlines, modern errors and unusual varieties are increasingly gaining prominence. Collectors today are more educated, more engaged, and more enthusiastic about discovering and documenting unusual minting phenomena. Forums, social media groups, and numismatic conventions buzz with excitement whenever a new variety is identified or an old mystery piece resurfaces. In this environment, a coin like the 1965 large date Washington Quarter becomes not just valuable, it becomes legendary. And the story doesn't end with this auction alone. Because the population of this variety is so small, every new discovery, even in circulated condition, has the potential to reshape our understanding of minting history during that era. If another example were to come to light, collectors would watch closely to see how its condition and auction performance compare. But for now, this coin stands as one of the most remarkable Washington Quarter discoveries of all time. For collectors, there are lessons to take away from this incredible story. First, always pay attention to subtle details. What might seem like a minor variation could be the key to uncovering something rare and valuable. Second, don't discount circulated coins too quickly. Condition is important, but it isn't everything. Rarity combined with verified authenticity can result in astonishing values, even for worn pieces. And third, stay curious. Numismatics rewards those who look closely, study history, and never stop exploring. Next coin, the 1988 Washington Quarter dollar with a rare large date and a P mint mark variety, found in circulated scratched condition and valued today at an incredible $180,000. What makes this coin so special is not just the price it fetched. It's the story behind how an everyday coin, hiding in plain sight for decades, became a numismatic legend. When most people think of a Washington quarter, they picture a common 25-cent coin, something you see all the time in wallets, vending machines, and coin jars. The Washington quarter has been part of American currency since 1932, and with billions struck over the years, most are ordinary and worth only their face value. But every so often, a coin with an unusual variation or error slips through the minting process and captures the attention of collectors worldwide. The 1988 large date Overmintmark Quarter is one of those rare and unforgettable finds. To understand why this coin has achieved such a high value, we first need to look at what makes it unusual. The designation large date refers to the size and style of the numerals in the date on the coin's face. Minting dies, the metal stamps that press the design onto a blank coin, are supposed to produce consistent date designs. But sometimes different dies or variations in die preparation create unexpected differences. On the rare large date variety of the 1988 quarter, the numerals are noticeably bigger and more pronounced than on the standard issue. The 9 and the 8 in particular stand out as wider, taller, and more boldly aligned on the coin's surface, giving the overall date a unique appearance. Equally important is the presence of the P mint mark, indicating the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In 1988, the Philadelphia Mint was producing large quantities of Washington quarters for circulation, and most of those coins follow a standard pattern with consistent date size and mint mark placement. But on this extraordinary variety, the combination of a large date and a precise mint mark placement that differs from typical examples caught the eye of expert collectors. This is not a case of wear or damage. This is a genuine variety that originated from the minting dies themselves. Today, numismatists use reference guides, die state charts, and extensive databases to identify and classify such varieties. It's a detailed science, and discovering a new or rare variety can be like finding a needle in a haystack. That's why when this 1988 quarter first emerged, it caused such excitement among collectors. Even though the coin was found in circulated condition, meaning it had visible surface where from decades of use, its rarity was so significant that condition became secondary to its uniqueness. For many people, the idea that a worn, scratched quarter could fetch a six-figure price might seem unbelievable. After all, collectors usually pay top dollar for coins in pristine, uncirculated condition, coins with sharp details, bright surfaces, and no history of circulation. But rarity changes the rules. When a coin is one of only a few known examples, or represents a previously undocumented die variety, collectors are willing to pay extraordinary prices regardless of surface wear. This particular 1988 large date Overmintmark Quarter spent years in circulation. It shows signs of everyday use, tiny scratches, flattened high points, and the dulling that comes from handling and circulation. These marks tell their own story. The story of a coin that served its purpose for years, changing hands countless times, before someone looked at it more closely and realized they were holding something remarkable. Eventually, this quarter came to light in the numismatic market, and experts authenticated it. Authentication is a crucial step in the auction process, especially for rare varieties. Professional grading services scrutinize the coin's design, compare it to known examples, measure the date numerals and mint mark features, and verify that what they're seeing is genuine and not the result of later alteration or damage. Once authenticated and documented, the coin was submitted to a major auction where collectors from around the world could bid on it. As the bidding began, interest was intense. Dealers, private collectors, institutional collectors, and investors all recognized that they were looking at one of the rarest modern quarter varieties known. The excitement built quickly, with bids climbing rapidly from tens of thousands to six figures. When the final hammer fell, the winning bid was an incredible $180 $180,000, a number that would make anyone pause and reflect on how something with a face value of just 25 cents could achieve such astounding value. So why does the market place such a high premium on this coin? The answer lies in three core principles of numismatics: rarity, demand, and history. First, rarity. An uncommon die variety, like the large date on a 1988 quarter, is extremely scarce, especially when authenticated and documented. Only a handful of such coins may be known to exist, and that scarcity drives competition. Second, demand. Collectors today are more educated, more engaged, and increasingly interested in modern varieties and errors that were once overlooked. A coin that represents a documented variation becomes a must-have for serious collectors. And third, history. Coins are not just pieces of metal, they are artifacts of time. They carry the imprint of the mint's production processes, the circulation of money across the country, and the story of how they were made and used. Another fascinating aspect of this coin's value is how it shows that condition, while important, is not always the dominant factor. In many cases, a rare coin in pristine condition will fetch a higher price than a worn example. But when the rarity is extreme, condition becomes secondary. A circulated coin, that is one of a few known examples, can bring prices that rival or exceed uncirculated coins of more common varieties. This sale also highlights how the modern coin market has evolved. In years past, collectors focused primarily on classic rarities: early copper coins, silver dollars, Morgan dollars, and coins struck before 1900. But over the past few decades, collectors have developed a deep appreciation for varieties and errors in more recent coinage. Advances in technology, online databases, social media, and specialized forums have made it easier for collectors to share information, research details, and collaborate on discoveries. This increased visibility means that uncommon modern varieties are no longer hidden or overlooked. They are documented, studied, and sought after with passion. And that's exactly what happened with this 1988 Washington Quarter large date Overmintmark variety. Once it was identified and authenticated, collectors recognized its significance, and the competitive bidding reflected that recognition. The final sale price of $180,000 wasn't just a number. It was a testament to how much collectors value authenticity, rarity, and the thrill of discovery.